Hey dude, what's up? This is Evan from Stock Music Musician, and today we have the last and final part of our 2021 Music Licensing Challenge. In this video, we will be uploading the track to Pond 5, we'll be doing some keyword strategies, and also we'll be mastering it. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with the mastering and tell you a little bit about what mastering is. Then we'll export it and, go from there. But I do want to remind you to please go sign up for this challenge. There's a link down below. It's free if you haven't already, because even though this is day 5, there's a bunch of free downloads that you're going to get if you sign up for that challenge. You'll get additional coaching and resources via email and some additional support. So go check that out. Let's watch the intro. All right, we're back. Now, in the last video, we did the mixing. And now what I want to do is do some mastering and I guess sort of pre-mastering, which basically I just mean 2-bus processing or master bus processing, which sometimes, you can do this in the mastering plugin. Sometimes you can do it outside of the mastering plugin. To begin with, what I've done is what I want to do is tell you what mastering is, at least as I see it, for the digital era in stock music. Basically what you do is you bring out all the good stuff in the track just a little bit more, make it sound 2 or 3% better, and you also take out some of the bad stuff. Some low-end rumble maybe, and, take away 2 or 3% of the bad stuff, and then the song sounds like 4 or 5 or 6% better, but it does not transform anything. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you bring the volume up to comparable levels of professional music, but you don't necessarily want it to be as loud as possible, because that can run you into problems when your song is converted for streaming. For example, if you upload a song to a site like Pond 5, what they're going to do is automatically convert your song to like a streaming format, probably an MP3 or something, and they're going to add a little audio mark to it that says Pond 5, Pond 5. And so if you master your song as loud as possible, and then they put that extra voice, a few extra decibels of volume when that voice hits, and they transform it into an MP3 or some other format, you can run into a situation where your song clips and sounds distorted and awful. It's not necessary to make it that loud. So we're going to aim for an average of negative 14-ish dB full scale with LUFS with a peak of -1. And we'll get into that in a minute. And the final thing that you need to think about with mastering is quality control. Making sure that there's no typos in your song titles, that you're putting your songs into a folder where you can find them later. And I'm not just talking about like in an hour to upload them, but years from now if you want to upload everything to a new site. Also, it means making sure there's no excess silence at the beginning or end of a song. Or, if your song is labeled a 30-second edit, is it actually 30 seconds? So there's that quality control portion. Also, what we're going to do a little bit is talk about creating extra edits of tracks for music licensing. So right now I have no processing on my master bus except for a limiter. I'm going to actually take that off now, and I'm going to use Ozone 9 as my final stage, the maximizer there. I think this is probably the best plugin that I would recommend for every single person out there. Unequivocally, I'd recommend Ozone 9 for mastering if you're doing stock music. It is powerful, it is easy, it is efficient, it's super effective at getting great sounds. I've got an affiliate link down below, and I've got more videos on how to use it, like in advanced ways of doing it. But really go check out the price, because it's often on sale, and this thing is what you're going to want to make your mixes really go to the next level. We'll dive into that in a second, but the reason I'm putting this on now is just to have this maximizer here, set the ceiling so the song never goes above 1 decibel, just so that we don't clip as we start doing these other processing things. So I've set a loop to the loudest part of the song, and now let's start doing some mastering type stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is put like some of these things could happen in the mixing process. So I'm actually going to put like a bus compressor using just the basic one that comes with Logic, and using the standard red compressor with a time of release of about 60 and an attack of about 30. This is just sort of to add some glue. And let's see what this does on and off. That just makes everything sit together a little bit better, but nothing, like drastic. Just a little bit more glue, a little bit more tightness, and it does make things a little bit louder, but I think in a pleasing way. Kind of makes everything pump in time. The next thing I'm going to do, because this track has kind of an organic feel, is to use a tape simulator plugin. There's all sorts of ones. I'm going to use the Universal Audio Ampex ATR 102. And just, really there's a bunch of presets here, but I think usually just the, Master 30 just is going to add a little bit of warmth and clean. To me, that sounds pleasing. It's a little more saturated, a little more warm. There's a little more low end, and the high end's a little smoother. And it's actually quieter, but I think it feels good. Now, actually, we're almost, pretty much done. Now I'm going to run Ozone, now that I've just added this little bit of tweaking. And I'm actually going to use the AI feature of Ozone to get me started. What this does is it's basically an AI analyzer, and it has bajillions of, I don't know how many, but it's listened to a lot of mastered tracks and tries to compare your track to the tracks in its database, takes out harsh frequencies, makes the volume kind of sound right, all of that. Just like we were talking about with reference tracks in the previous video, this is sort of what that's doing. You can also, and you might also want to seriously consider also using a reference track in your mastering stage. Like I said last time, I'm not going to do that here because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But if you want to know more about reference tracks, watch part 4, the previous video. So let's turn on the Master Assistant and use that to get our starting point for mastering. So we want a modern sound. You could import a reference track to have it match up if you wanted, but not a super intense. And our final destination is going to be streaming. So that's the maximizer ceiling for 1 dB like we talked about. To me, that sounded a lot better. But let's look at what they actually did under the hood and see if these are things we want to do. So you notice there's just a slight low end bump or cut, a little bit of warmth up here, and then the high end was too high is what they're saying. So let's listen to these changes. me, that all makes it sound better. And the reason I trust these EQs and Ozone, I check them, but in the process of making your song, I'm sitting in the same room, which has these same resonances, these same weaknesses in sound proofing, even though I do have panels around me. This isn't a perfectly soundproof room by any means. I've got the same set of speakers that have whatever weaknesses they have. I've got my same ears, which have whichever, deafnesses I have and preferences I have. And so relying on the AI as a guide is a good place to start to kind of determine what you haven't been hearing all along. So the next section is the potential of adding in a compression just on the low end. Let's see what that does. Better off, you can hear there's just more dynamics to the kick without it being too punchy. Makes the kick and the bass more stabby. Next, we have a dynamic EQ, and this thing is the best at finding those resonances and taking them out. And so these only turn down when the sound crosses a certain threshold. So only when the sound is sounding the worst does this come in. And all this other sound we're hearing here is just from the microphone. So what you'll notice is it sounds a little honkier, like a little more wah, 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 like, Charlie Brown's mom with this off. But when it's on, it just gets a little clearer. So let's listen again. Off. So I actually feel like every part comes through a little bit clearer, especially the snare and some of the high energy there. Now the maximizer is set to peak at 1. Around -10 at the very loudest part of the song. So I'm happy with that. That's fine. We'll just trust this character. I usually actually go a little bit slower with the character, but let's see. It doesn't really matter much because the maximizer, the volume is being turned on, but it's almost never clamping down, because the song just isn't that aggressive and doesn't need to be. So we've got a nice volume that we're fine with, and we can leave these settings as they are. Let's turn off true peak and just go with ceiling. We don't want to double process that. There's also a bunch of other features that you can get with different versions of Ozone. I'm also going to add the imager here. We've used this on other parts of the track on individual instruments, but I also want to just do a bit on the full-on bus. So let's see what modern width sounds like. Mid-range presence, really, like, you got a tight bottom and then you got the wide open other parts. I like it. So let's listen to this on and off. So there you have it. That is basically all you want to do for, mixing and mastering. It's not about over processing it. And you don't want your song to be too busy or harsh. You don't want it to conflict with a potential voiceover. You're just kind of trying to create this nice, pleasant sound that could go in the background anywhere. So the next thing we now have to do is export the song. And basically the way I like to do that is just highlight the selections I want using almost I'm going to do a loop and being sure to get the full tail, and then hitting Command B in Logic, but everything's going to be different. Selecting a wave. Every site is going to be different about what type of music they want. Some sites still want 44, but I prefer to do 48 unless it's specifically required because it's just a higher quality track, and that's what most sites are willing to accept. You also have the option of including the tail, but I've been generous here and gone past where the tail is, I think, so we should be fine. And then you just hit export, and through the magic of cinematography, when we come back, we will have all of the edits done and we'll start uploading them to Pond 5. But I do want to also let you know that if you sign up for the email challenge, in the 5th day's email, you will receive information about the most popular edits for music licensing. And basically the way I would create edits would be just to, let's say I wanted a 30-second edit. I would select from back here, knowing, all right, this is 103. So if I want a 30-second edit, I need to find where 33 seconds are. And I would instead make the loop section this long, for example. And I would test it to make sure that it actually came in. That's an awkward place for it to come in, so you might need to do some editing track to find the right cut point, which might include making, actually using the razor tool in your DAW to move things apart and create new mixes. Or if you're making a no drum mix, for example, you would go to the drum bus and literally just mute it. So I'll see you in a sec. We're going to export all these files and then we'll start uploading them. Okay, so I've exported the song and all of my edits. And now what I want to do is upload them to Pond 5, which is the #1 site I recommend for beginners to start licensing their music. So you create an account, as you did on day 1, right? And then you go down here to uploads. And now you say upload new file. And all you got to do is choose the files you want, select them all. You notice I've now changed the name of the song to actually be something more interesting than just music licensing challenge. And I've also been sure to include the important information about what mix I'm doing. This is more for my benefit than for other people's benefit. And I've also included the BPM in the track, in at least one version, just so I can know at a glance what the BPM is. Now it's going to take Pond 5 a couple of minutes to process all of this. So I'm going to stop the video here and we'll resume once these have been processed. So the Pond 5 servers have now processed the music. You'll see it originally, while it's processing, they'll show up under this processing status phase. When it's all done, they will now be available to edit under this needs edits drop down menu here. It takes, really the amount of time it takes varies a lot. Sometimes it's very quick. This time it took about an hour, but let's go on and make these edits. So the best and most efficient way to do it is to upload all of the edits to one song in a batch. Click this button to select all of them and go down here and select Batch Edit Music. Then hit Execute. And now what this will allow me to do is type everything once and make all of these changes to all of these tracks, which is just way more efficient. So what type of music? It's music cleared for sampling? No. Let's write a description. And if you signed up for the class via the email link down below, you'll be getting a free guide to keywording and descriptions and all of that. So be sure to register for that. But for this type of song, we'll use a description that, upbeat, happy, corporate rock track featuring acoustic guitar, piano, drums, bass, and bass and keyboard. This inspiring. We'll do spell check later. Inspiring piece is great motivational background music. Simple, but joyful. It makes great a great choice for podcasts, videos, or corporate presentations. Something like that. You want a reader to be able to see what it's about in the first glance. Date, created, location, city, not relevant. You don't need to fill that out. And you don't need to do what you created or recorded it with. Seamless looping? No. But for the one track that is a loop, we will add that. Okay, human voice? No. Medium. Composer? You put your name there. Publisher? You would usually put your name there. And for the performing rights organization, you'll put that there as well. So that if you have your music broadcast, you can get paid back-end royalties. You get to set the price if you want, or you can make Pond 5 set the price. To do that, you do manual pricing, and don't let them give it away for promotions for free. I usually like to sell my music for between $39 and $49. We'll just do $49 for all of them across the board. I don't see any reason that a shorter piece of music should be less expensive. It all took the exact same amount of work for me to write. And it actually took extra time to chop up the small bits. So the most important thing about your stock music is going to be your title and your keywords here. So be sure you get these right. And again, that's why you need to download that keyword guide, because it will help you make your songs get found. You're not going to sell any music if you don't get it found. So the first place that's always good to start is just with these suggested terms that are down here. So bright, cheerful, happy, confident. And I'm sorry if you hear a little noise outside my window. My neighbors are doing some construction. Fun, happy, positive, optimistic, joyful, inspirational, motivational, hopeful, uplifting. And for instruments, and for whatever reason that's not working right now, so I'll just do bass, drums, keyboard, piano, acoustic, guitar. Those are the main ones that we want to focus on that I think a buyer would be interested in. Now let's go to more moods, more uses, that sort of thing. So, corporate. corporate rock, pop, upbeat, joy, some variations, joyous, simple, podcast, background, business, simplicity, and then some additional, I think, genre-based stuff is helpful. Background music. We have motivational, but motivation, synonyms or similar words help a lot. For this, you can also add things like, wonder, I think, is a good one. Exploration, explore, hope. We already have hopeful, but hope. Optimism. Did we get joy? No, let's do joy. Achieve. Confidence. Basically, you're looking for things that people might search for. You're not allowed to use other band names or things that are copyrighted, so that is something you need to keep in mind as well. Presentation. All right, so that's a reasonable enough start. Add to collections. And if you've been doing this enough, you create collections of each type of music so that people can browse all of your music together. So, these are some of the collections that I've put together. And for this, upbeat corporate music. And now I will just hit save changes, and the songs now each have that information stored to them. Now what I have to do is actually individually edit each song. So most of the stuff is already there, but what I like to do is go to the title and also add some of the keywords. And this will help with search. And then I'll just hit Control-C to copy it and make sure that everything looks right. And then go down here, go to next item, and I've submitted this one. And so you go and do that for all of the tracks, and you will be in business. I hope you have found this super helpful and that you have learned how to start licensing your music. If you've got any questions, just leave a comment below. I'll be sure to respond to them. Be sure again to sign up for the challenge so you get all your free downloads. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of luck selling your music and making your dreams come true. Bye.